Welcome to the first in a series of videos celebrating the 75th anniversary year of the completion of the Green Lake Church in 1947. The founding congregation had a vision of a beautiful church where humans could sense the presence of God. They used their creativity and made tremendous sacrifices to build this unique sanctuary on a spectacular setting. We will revisit the story of the planning and construction of the church, as well as highlights of the 75 years since. Led by the visionary Dr. Arthur Grauman, the members of the North Seattle Church dreamed of a new building that addressed all of the elements of aesthetic beauty, excellent acoustics, and built on the shores of one of Seattle's foremost scenic treasures, and Washington State's most visited park, Green Lake. Green Lake would be an appropriate place to start, right across the street and with its own interesting history. After millennia of occupation by indigenous groups, the lake was visited by a surveyor named David Phillips in 1855, who named it Green Lake because there was an algae bloom going on at the time. The shallow lake was fed by a stream coming from Licton Springs, a couple miles to the north. There is a Licton Springs Park below 97th Street. The stream entered the lake at its northwest corner. The outflow from the lake was Ravenna Creek, running along what is now Ravenna Boulevard, which eventually entered Union Bay, where University Village now stands. This is the eastern shore in the 1890s, showing an electric railway used for logging. The current location of the church is probably about the center of this picture. In 1902, the city of Seattle hired the Olmsted brothers, sons of Frederick Law Olmsted, the principal designer of Central Park in Manhattan. They developed and largely implemented a comprehensive plan for Seattle parks, including the area around Green Lake. They wanted to create a lake within a park, and at their suggestion, the lake was lowered by 7 feet in 1911. This map shows the old shoreline in blue compared to the current. Ravenna Creek could no longer drain water from the lake and dried up. The stream from Licton Springs was diverted to the city water system, and the lake from then on did not have streams coming into or out of the lake. The shoreline of the lake used to run along East Green Lake Way north between the church and the park. Green Lake used to freeze over frequently in the winters, especially in the 1920s. A trolley replaced the railway in 1900. The swimming beach in the north end has been a popular center of the park. Here in 1936, here in 1950, and more recently. No history of the lake would be complete without mentioning the Aqua Theater at the south end. Built in 1950, it housed an attraction called the Aqua Follies, which included water ballet, diving, and stage performances. It had a recessed and floating orchestra pit. In 1970, after the World's Fair, it was mostly torn down. Big acts such as Bob Hope performed there. In 1969, both Led Zeppelin and the Grateful Dead held concerts at the theater. The cornerstone of our church was laid in the northeast corner. It says, Green Lake Church, Seventh-day Adventist, 1910 to 1946. Obviously inscribed in 1946. We are now going to take a look at this early period. Who were these people, and where were they? In fact, according to the Seattle City Directories, our congregation goes back to 1903, 8 years before the lake was lowered. A group met in a converted house out in a thriving suburb of Seattle, on the corner of 5th Avenue Northeast and 72nd Street, as shown by the purple pin in this map. There is a brief article about the congregation in the June 9, 1906 edition of the Gleaner. The article says that they have a good church building with an addition for church school purposes. It also hoped that, may this church truly be as a light shining in a dark place. When the first Green Lake Church grew to 74 members, the congregation bought a bigger building from the telephone company. It was located at the corner of 47th and Interlaken, where the U.S. Post Office currently is. This new acquisition was described in an article in the 1924 Gleaner as being a better, more central, and more commodious building for their church home in the northern part of the city. The congregation spent $7,500, which was half the original asking price. When they moved into the new building, the congregation changed its name from the Green Lake Church to the North Seattle Church. The article also hoped that the church will be a radiator of light and a center of influence in this growing section of Seattle. 21 years later, when the membership had grown to 274, the old telephone building was sold, and a great and improbable adventure was begun to build a new church.